Hello guys, welcome back to my channel Automation of Sathak, and in continuation with the string videos in English, we'll study the topic why is string immutable. Very common interview question. Typically they'll ask you, is string immutable? You will say yes, and then when it will be why, you will give it cannot be changed or something like that, just a vague answer which actually doesn't make a lot of logical sense. It just makes a verbal sense. So we'll understand why is actually string immutable. So first let us understand the word. What does immutable mean? Something which cannot be changed. Okay, does that mean that whatever you create in a string cannot be changed? To a certain extent, yes. But what is the exact logical answer to that yes? Logical explanation of that yes, we'll understand. So always remember this: string objects are immutable. Excuse me. So the concept of immutability is with string objects. So this is the real gist of it. So technically, string objects are the one which which actually deals with this immutability part. How and why, I'll go ahead and explain. So before that, let me make a string object, and let's say this is selenium. I pass the literal selenium over here. So I had explained in the previous video, in this kind of situation, two objects are created. Okay, one in the heap memory and the other one in the SCP. One in the heap memory because of the new keyword, and this literal which is passed is created in the SCP memory. So with this statement, two objects are created. Right now, let's say for example, when you use this object reference s and then you go ahead with dot, the moment you do this, you will see multiple number of methods coming for the string class. There are so many. I mean, it's difficult to remember, and yes, practically we have to use some of them. But yes, there are so many. Java people have given us so many methods to make our life simpler and to do a lot of manipulations. We'll understand the string manipulations in upcoming videos. But the moment, let's say for example, as of now, I'm trying to tell how does immutability work. Immutability means something which cannot be changed, something which remains intact. Okay, now, so let's say for example, I'll choose one of the methods which is known as concat. So here, I'll try to concat this with Java. So now, I will try to print this value. Many people will say, okay, concatenation means, joining a string. So what happens is selenium was there, you have joining Java, so the output will be selenium Java. 90% will say this. No, the answer is not selenium Java, the answer is only selenium. So if you go ahead and execute this particular step, see, the answer is selenium. The answer is not selenium Java. This is something which you have to understand why it is. So with this explanation, I'll have to carry it in MS Paint. Yesterday I just gave us in the previous video I just said, okay, let's say for example this is your heap area, the square box is your heap area, and this is your SCP or SLP area. So because of this new keyword, you will be able to create an object. Let's say you create an object here, okay, and here selenium will be passed. Okay, and similarly you will also be able to create an object inside the string constant pool area, and here also the literal selenium will be passed. The only difference that will happen is this S will be referring to the heap area object, and this selenium, this object created in the SCP area, will be referred by a JVM internal reference. So the only difference is S will be referring to this particular object created in the heap area, and this object will be referred by a JVM internal reference. JVM internal reference will be referring to this particular thing. Now, what technically happens is, whenever you do, what happens is, here you're trying to do something, right? This is a certain operation. This operation is successful, but in a different way. How string how strings actually work is, in this particular case, it will not change the original value of this particular object. It will not. What it will do instead is, it will create another object. So technically what will happen is, the moment you do certain change like concatenation all, it will create a separate object like this. And here it will, since it is concatenated, it will use Selenium Java as a separate object. It will not affect the change in the original one. So that is the difference. It will not affect this change. So you have to be very, very careful in determining what changes you actually implement in the real-time scenario. This does not happen like, okay, fine, we have created something, so we'll go ahead and just do it. No. And it is not viable enough to actually do this. Okay, so this will, and another object will be created here in the form of Java. Okay, so technically speaking, this particular operation will be taken into account, but JVM will instead create a different object rather than tampering with the original one. So you have to be extremely careful in this. Now what will basically happen is, then there will be a question, sir, how will we make sure that whatever changes we are implementing gets to work? It's very simple. See, in this current situation, you are not changing the reference remains the same. In case you want to change the reference, you can do something like this. Let's say, for example, I'll use Python instead of C++. I'm doing something like this, right? And then if I do the printout of syso, now the answer will be of your choice, that is Selenium Python. So technically now you are changing the reference to a certain other reference, okay, to a certain other object which is created. So technically you have to be very careful in determining what actually things are. So the basic reason why strings are immutable, in case we do certain change in a string object, it goes, JVM creates a new object and it never changes the original one. This is the reason why this line is the answer to why strings are immutable. Because it will, every time you create something, let's say you have created Python will be created here. You have created the object and Python literal will be created here, and technically this will be referred by S now, and S will not refer to this anymore. S will be referred by S will refer now to this Python. So now S will be referring to this fellow. S will not be referring to this anymore. So typically speaking, this is why strings are immutable. Now, what is the application of this concept of immutability? The next question is how we use this concept in our daily programming. How we, okay, fine, Java people made strings immutable. Okay, we understood the concept that it creates a different object. It does not change the original object. That is fine. But we understood the concept. Now what about this? Everything, whatever logic we are learning, there has to be a certain application. So how this thing works? Technically, the concept of immutability works much better in a very flourishing format if at all you are working on something which has a lot of data. Let's say, for example, there is a string, let's say player 1, and player 1 is very fond of soccer. Okay, let's say for example there is a sports, uh, somebody has there is a certain sports festival happening, and they are entering data of a lot of players, and they are entering data because they want to segregate this player is playing this game, so whatever, for example. So let's say there is another player, player 2, he is fond of cricket, right? String player 3, this player is also fond of cricket. String player 4, this player is also fond of cricket. String player 5, this player is fond of hockey. So now what is my concern here? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these things. Okay, now since here we are passing the literal directly, one object will be created in the SCP. Okay, so soccer will be created here. Right, it will be referred by who? Player 1. So player 1 is referring soccer. Then there is here also one object will be created. Okay, cricket will be created, and it will be referred by player 2. Okay, now let's say player 3, cricket is there, it will not create any object because the literal is already there. So here 0, no object will be created because the literal is already present. Similarly, in this case also no object will be created. Because this string literal cricket is already there. Again here one object will be created because it is a new literal. So now let's say for example for player 2, 3 and 4 who are fond of cricket. So let's say this is player 3, okay, and player 4. All of them are playing cricket, so everything is getting referred to this particular cricket sport. Okay, now there is another player, hockey, who is interested in hockey. So let's say it is referred by player 5. So now let's say just for example player 4 all of a sudden decides no, he does not want to play this game, he wants to play some other game. Let's say he is fond of tennis now, he's like I'm much better in tennis compared to cricket, so I will not, I will change my game. So what happens, tennis will be created, sorry, tennis literal object will be created inside the SCP memory, and this player 4 who was referring to cricket will not refer to cricket anymore, rather this player will refer to tennis. Okay, so just imagine the situation. Now what will happen to this player 2 and player 3? Imagine if player 4 is referring to tennis, and then all of a sudden if string allows cricket to be changed to tennis, then what will happen to player 2 and 3? Because they are anyways playing cricket, right? That is how these things work. See, instead, if JVM, in case of strings, when you are changing something, if it stops creating different objects and starts changing inside the same object, let's say this new object tennis would not have been created, and this cricket got changed to tennis, what will happen to player 3 and 2 and 3? Because those two players are still playing cricket, right? They have not moved to tennis. So technically, if there is a certain change, JVM will understand, acknowledge the change, and will move into a new object. And then it will ask that particular reference point to refer to that object, so that the other two objects, the original ones, they do not get affected because they are not implementing any change. Whenever there is a certain change, a new thing is created. It does not tamper the original bit. This is the concept of immutability, and this is the reason why strings play a very active role in a lot of places, especially in banking applications where they need a lot of security. When a certain change has certain serious implications, so that is why the immutability concept of strings is extremely important. And this kind of immutability concept is not applicable to other data types in Java like int, float, because they acknowledge change even in the original part of it. But this one will not acknowledge that change. That is why string is very powerful. That is why string is immutable. I hope this small session on why immutability, application of immutability, and how we should understand and give a lot of credit to the Java people of creating strings. I hope you liked this session, and if you did, please do not forget to support my channel. Thank you so much. Sarthak here, signing off.